Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on quite a compelling exploration. We're looking into what it truly means to stand for truth, especially when the pressures of the world, maybe even the threat of personal cost, feel immense. It's really about that rare, almost unshakable conviction. Many of you, I'm sure, are well-versed in the story of John the Baptist. He's a figure often synonymous with, boldness and integrity. But today, we're not just recounting the story. We want to peel back the layers a bit, maybe unearth some profound insights into his courage and what it might demand of us even now. Our materials draw from some rich biblical passages, some insightful reflections on truth, and a set of liturgical readings that give us a really focused lens for this.
That's right. And our mission here in this deep dive is really to move beyond just the narrative. We want to try and extract those foundational principles. Integrity, fearlessness. We're looking at why these ancient stories still resonate so strongly, and maybe most importantly, what they challenge you to think about in your own life. We're kind of looking for those aha moments, the deeper currents beneath the surface events.
Okay, let's unpack this then. With that theme of integrity in mind, let's turn directly to the figure who perhaps personified it best, John the Baptist, and the enduring power of courage. So we can start our exploration with this central idea of courage. It's introduced really beautifully in one of our sources, the Courage to Defend Truth reflection. It opens with Psalm 27, verse 1. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear?" Now that verse, it isn't just a statement of faith, is it? It feels like a direct challenge to fear itself.
It really does. And what's fascinating, I think, is that the psalmist isn't denying danger exists. It's more a declaration that in the presence of God's light and salvation, fear just loses its power. It sort of redefines where our security comes from. And when you connect that to John the Baptist, well, it becomes incredibly vivid. As the reflection points out, John's act of speaking truth, it cost him his life, plain and simple. Yet his witness is still described as a beacon of faith. That's not just a nice phrase, right? It implies a guiding light, a clear standard. Even in death, his stand illuminated the path and, kept challenging power long after he was gone. It's about that lasting legacy of an uncompromising stance.
And it really highlights that universal struggle the reflection mentions, that fear of rejection or suffering often keeps us silent when we should stand for righteousness. That's such a fundamental tension, isn't it? It's not always about these huge dramatic moments either. It's often in the smaller daily choices where we might compromise out of fear.
Exactly. It shows that the deepest commitments, they're often forged when there's a real personal cost involved. True integrity isn't just having a moral code. It's about being willing to accept the consequences, however tough, for upholding that code publicly. And the reflection really drives home this call to action. It reminds us God calls us to live with integrity even when it is difficult. And that true discipleship demands boldness rooted in trust in the Lord. It's not passive. It means looking at where we might be holding back, where that fear keeps us quiet, and then finding the courage to actually act.
That's a powerful challenge. And maybe before we dive right into John's specific confrontation, it's helpful to understand the sort of broader context, the ideas about conduct and holiness that really underpinned his message. To really get John's stand, we need to grasp the moral landscape he was in.
Absolutely. And this is where 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 becomes so helpful, verses 1 through 8. This passage, often taught to new believers back then, it lays out these foundational principles of conduct, what righteous living looked like. And these principles were often in pretty stark contrast to the norms John was up against. He urges people to avoid immorality, specifically to marry with honor and respect, and importantly, not with the kind of uncontrolled passion common among those who don't know God. And it warns very clearly not to take advantage of or exploit a brother or sister in this matter. These weren't just suggestions, they're presented as quite explicitly the will of God, your holiness.
Right. And what really sharpens this for me is that warning right after. Whoever disregards this disregards not a human being, but God, who also gives his Holy Spirit to you. Wow. That really ups the stakes, doesn't it? It directly links personal choices, personal conduct, the divine will. It makes it clear John wasn't just preaching like social niceties. He was calling for a deep spiritual realignment. So with that understanding of righteous conduct established, here's where it gets really interesting. The stage is set for that inevitable clash. When John's principles met raw power, now we arrive at the core of the story, the drama. It's laid out so meticulously in Mark chapter 6. The scene opens. Herod arrests John, throws him in prison, and the reason given. It was all on account of Herodias, the wife of his brother Philip, whom he had married. Right there, you see the conflict brewing. A powerful ruler, a marriage that's seen as unlawful, and John stepping right into the middle of it.
Exactly. And John's declaration to Herod was just, Unequivocal. It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. That was the specific truth. He wasn't being vague about morality. He was directly challenging the king's power, confronting this specific illicit behavior head on. I mean, talk about putting conviction before safety. He's confronting the highest authority in the land.
That's such a critical point. He wasn't subtle at all. He named the wrong. And the text gives us this really fascinating, almost uncomfortable insight into Herod's character here.
It really does. You see these complex motivations swirling around. Herodias, well, she understandably held this deep grudge against John. She wanted him dead, but couldn't, initially at least. But Herod, he's not just a cardboard villain. The text says he feared John, knowing him to be a righteous and holy man. He kept him safe in custody. And here's the intriguing part. It says he liked to listen to him, even though he was very much perplexed by what John said.
Perplexed, but liked to listen. That's quite a mix.
It paints a picture of a leader caught, doesn't it? Caught between his...
Which brings us right to the turning point, a truly gripping and ultimately tragic sequence. Herod's birthday rolls around. He throws this huge banquet. Courtiers, military officers, the leading men of Galilee, everyone's there. You can picture the scene. Lavish, full of power, influence, maybe a bit decadent, an environment just ripe for impulsive actions. And then Herodias' daughter comes in. She performs a dance, and it says it delighted Herod and his guests.
So Herod, caught up in the moment, maybe showing off, wanting to impress, he makes this incredibly rash public promise. Ask of me whatever you wish, and I will grant it to you. He even swears oaths, offering even to half of my kingdom. It's this huge impulsive vow, made right there in front of everyone.
And this is where it just takes that chilling turn. It shows the power of manipulation, really.
Yeah.
The daughter doesn't just ask for something. She goes out, consults her mother, Herodias, and Herodias' response is just infamous. I want you to give me at once on a platter the head of John the Baptist. Right there, the personal grudge meets the public oath, and it's all orchestrated by Herodias' vengeful heart. It's brutal. It really is.
Yeah.
And it forces us to think, doesn't it? What kind of promise should be broken when you're trapped by your own words, especially when justice is on the line?
Exactly. The text says Herod was deeply distressed. He knew the request was wrong. He knew John was righteous. But he felt bound by his oaths and the guests. He didn't want to lose face, break his word, even if keeping it meant an unjust execution. It's a classic moral dilemma, isn't it? The sacredness of a promise versus the undeniable wrongness of fulfilling it in this case. We see versions of this all the time, maybe not with heads on platters, thankfully, but dilemmas where keeping our word might actually cause harm. It makes you ask, when does integrity demand breaking a promise?
And so, tragically, the story concludes. Herod sends the executioner. John is beheaded in prison. The head is brought back on a platter, given to the girl who then gives it to her mother. It's just so stark, so brutal, such a simple, terrible end to this powerful stand for truth. The only small comfort mentioned is that John's disciples heard about it, came, took his body, and laid it in a tomb.
But if we step back a bit, John's fate, while it feels so unjust in the moment, it does align with that profound spiritual principle we find in Matthew 5:10. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, it's easy to just read that and say, okay, John fits, but the deeper insight might be about the nature of that blessing. It's not about finding joy in the suffering itself, but finding this unshakable conviction, this spiritual reward through standing for what's right, even when the earthly outcome is, devastating. It suggests a completely different way of measuring success and failure, doesn't it? Prioritizing eternal truth over just staying alive. His death, in that light, isn't an end, it's a testament.
That connection to Matthew 5:10 really is poignant. It almost reframes his death, doesn't it? Not as a failure, but maybe as a confirmation of the very principles he lived by. It reinforces that idea that even when it looks like defeat, there's this deeper message of enduring light, like we see in Psalm 97. Light dawns for the just, and gladness for the upright of heart. Even when the outcome is tragic, the integrity, the truth of the stand, it shines through. It offers a different kind of gladness, perhaps.
Absolutely. And that lifts us right back to that courage to defend truth reflection, that call for integrity, for boldness rooted in trust. John's witness, despite everything, despite the cost, it really does remain this powerful standard, this beacon. It's a story that just challenges us to look beyond the immediate results and think about the lasting impact of living authentically, courageously. Regardless of the consequences, his legacy isn't just words, it's his action.
Wow. What an exploration this has been. We've really journeyed through John the Baptist's unwavering courage, haven't we? We've looked at that profound call to holiness and integrity, seen the dangerous mix of power, a rash oath, a conflicted conscience, and ultimately, we've seen that profound blessing promised to those who stand for righteousness, even when it costs them everything.
Yeah, and if we try to connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't just some ancient history lesson, is it? It really speaks to the daily choices we all face. The truths we might be called to uphold in our own lives, maybe in smaller ways, maybe bigger. And it speaks to the internal strength needed to do that. It challenges us to look at our own commitments, our convictions, and ask what integrity really means beyond just convenience.
Exactly. That reflection we mentioned, courage to defend truth, to pose a question. And I kind of want to personalize it for you listening right now. What truth do you need to defend today? And maybe just as importantly, how can you do it with both courage and love? It's definitely a question worth pondering long after we finish talking. It reminds us that the light of truth, once it's revealed, well, it can never really be put out. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredibly powerful deep dive into courage and conviction. We really hope these lessons resonate with you.